Hello? Hey, Garrett. How you doing, pal?
Good. How about you, Gary?
I'm doing well. I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Yeah, one sec.
That's cool. Hey, Trev.
How you doing?
Is it showing that my video is on or off?
Let's see. It's showing that it's on.
Oh,
Okay, yeah, I think I'm having a problem with my – one sec.
Trev, those little lax heads behind you there?
yeah, they're all broken.
And I had to go buy a stick because you couldn't get it to me.
You bought
One
one?
sec. I'm going to call back in on my cell phone. I think there's something wrong with my webcam.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we don't need you on video if you don't, but we'd like to be able to see you, but if you can't, we can just do it without it too.
It's better with
Yeah.
as long as the audio is clear. It's
Yeah.
that's
It's up to you though, Garrett, whatever you want to do about.
Yeah, let me just try putting it on.
Okay.
All right, one sec.
Yeah, Trev, I paid $29 for the stick. I have it. Don't worry about it.
I was gonna say I have mine in the house. I can demonstrate whatever, but this is Garrett.
It wasn't for this. It wasn't for this. It was for the call I did with your high school team. The high school team.
You did that at 5?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. How'd that go?
It was good. I mean, it was like, I had 20 minutes. I probably had enough material for, well, just what I wanted to talk about was like an hour. But it was fine. It was good. I think Jordan said the kids liked it and, got something out of it. They weren't really prepared for it. So next time we'll prepare them a little bit more.
It's they're free and on break now.
There he is.
Hey, is that better? There we go.
Perfect, man.
Let me get this propped up so my arms don't fall asleep.
I think your arms have done more work than this.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised.
I'm not sure where though. If it's in the wrestling room, the weight room, or in the pottery, the pottery wheel.
It's usually when you're doing all three of them on the same day that it starts to add up. But
yeah,
I've held the phone extended for FaceTime. After about 30 minutes, it'll get to you. It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They always talk about carrying the weight of something, and you're like, whether it's a brick or a feather or a phone, you hold it for 10 seconds, there's no weight. But when you hold it for 2 hours, it weighs you down no matter what. So like problems,
Even just holding your arm out for that long.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, man, we're so happy to have you on. I'm glad that, Coach kind of hooked this up for us. I think I gave you a little background in my emails, my text to you that, we're doing this podcast. We're trying to share with young athletes kind of what makes elite athletes, people who, 4-time NCAA qualifiers, guys like you, what makes you different? What made you excel a little differently than everybody else? But we'd love to just hear the backstory on you, how you got started in wrestling, what made you stay with that sport over others, and then kind of we'll have a bunch of questions for you, more specifics after that.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Well, I started wrestling when I was in 5th grade. I was about 10 years old. Prior to that, I played baseball religiously, skateboarded, BMX'd, all the typical kid stuff. And my younger brother actually went to a wrestling practice before I ever did, and I'd gone and watched him practice before. And that was kind of the first exposure I had to it and the first flavor I got for it. There was a pretty tragic incident where I didn't make the 9 and 10-year-old Little League All-Star team when I was 10 years old. And that really got to me and beat me up. And I felt that there were some kids who got selected for the team whose dads happened to be coaching the team who I had significantly better baseball stats in. And it really, really pissed me off beyond repair. And I asked my dad, I said, Dad, what sport can I play where if I'm better than the coach's kid, I'm going to get to play? And he said, wrestling, swimming, track. And I was like, all right, I'd seen Dylan wrestle. Let's try out wrestling practice. So the next year I started going to the same club that my brother had started at. It was the Sunkist Kids Academy Club that they ran out of Arizona State University and ASU. And I just fell in love with the sport immediately. And outside of the whole like competitive one-on-one aspect, I just thought it was way more engaging than sitting on first base, waiting for the ball to come to you, sitting in the dugout, waiting for your opportunity. I really just appreciated the individuality of it so much, where all of my outcomes were entirely left up to my preparation and my performance. And there was much less influence from outside sources. And wrestling is a team sport when you're in a dual meet, but it's very much individualized. I've been in a dual meet where everyone on the team won except for me, and I felt terrible about it. And I've been in a dual meet where everyone else lost on the team, but I won, and I still felt pretty good that night. So,
Yeah,
True,
yeah.
so true.
And we can, as wrestling coach, wrestling family, we can totally, relate to what you're talking about. And I always say to people, I coach both my sons throughout high school. And I said, the only sport that I would ever coach them in high school was wrestling. Because otherwise I would have been the guy, oh, why is Travis starting? Why is Jordan starting? Here it was, like you said, it was simple. You want Travis's spot? Go beat Travis. You want Jordan's spot? Go beat Jordan. And sometimes they had to beat somebody to win that spot. So yeah, we definitely love that aspect of it.
You gotta earn your keep. The same way, you want to do it all yourself, go out there and do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
You want to get all the rewards, go out there and put in all the effort. It's just a simple penny in, penny out type of situation,
Nothing given to you, and there's very little subjectivity in it. It's usually pretty clear cut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So were you always a big kid? I mean, you're a big man. Were you always a big kid, and how was that if you were?
So I'd say I was a big kid, a medium teenager, and then a big man. So like when I was in 5th and 6th grade, I wrestled in the 112-pound weight class. I think 130 was the upward limit for at that age group. Then in 7th grade, I was like 125. 8th grade, I was 145, which was a little on the bigger end, but I was kind of a middleweight at that point. My freshman year of high school, I was 145. My sophomore year, I was 160. Then my junior year, I wrestled 170. So at age 17, I was a little over 6'2". Had about like the same broad in my shoulders. Like my frame was as big as it is now, but I was just absolutely skin and bone. Like was looking like Skeletor. So after my junior season, I started to make like a concerted effort to gain weight. I was lifting weights with some of my friends in high school that played football, and they were all slamming protein shakes, trying to put on pounds. And I was like, okay, I'm tired of going 170 and cutting weight. Let's see how big I can get. And in 2.5 months, I put on 50 pounds. So February 9th of my junior year, I weighed in at 170 for the state tournament. Then in the middle of May for the Fila Cadet Nationals, I weighed in at 218. So wow. I put on 50 pounds in like 10 weeks.
That's big. That's a big jump.
Your body was just waiting for that time in the gym. That's all it was.
It really just stuck to me so quickly when I started. A lot of it was the lifting, but even more than that was eating, because I was cutting weight pretty hard to make 170. Within like the first 2 weeks after the state tournament, I was already at like 195. So really the only last 20 pounds were work. But yeah, once I started gaining weight, I was able to carry it pretty well and kind of just filled out relatively quickly. I went 220 my senior year. Then right after my senior year, I made the jump up to heavyweight.
Were you always a one sport athlete once the baseball incident? Did you go right to wrestling and stay there, or were you play multiple sports? I went
right to wrestling. In 5th grade, I still played baseball too. But when 6th grade came around, I was like, yeah, I just want to wrestle. In 7th and 8th grade, I wrestled year-round club, didn't play any other sports. Then when we were getting to high school, I wanted to go out for freshman football. And I went to all the football team lifts for like the first 3 weeks to a month. And I started just thinking, I'm going to have a lot less time on the wrestling mat if I play football. And then I ultimately decided to just wrestle. So I was a one sport athlete all the way through middle school and high school.
How did that like take your mindset? Because especially when you're in high school, being a one sport athlete is great when it's a fun loving team sport and everyone's, you know, having a good time and eating cake before games and stuff. When you're a wrestler, you're very isolated in your training a little bit and sometimes your mindset. Like how did that work for you where you're able to have your relationships with your friends and have all that mat time? So like you said, you didn't want to sacrifice mat time when you were younger. How do you balance both?
I mean, the best part was a lot of my good friends were also really good teammates. So we were just putting in all the work together. And the one nice thing about wrestling in high school is it's only a 3-month-long season. In college, wrestling's pretty much a 6-month season. Like the day you get on campus, you have like 2 weeks of classes and then you're starting workouts twice a day. But it would mostly just be that from about mid-November to early February, I was just locked down, like wouldn't see me much outside of the room. Then I took a healthy break every summer, took a healthy break at the beginning of school to keep up with my friends who weren't on the wrestling team. But for the most part, it's just like locking it down.
Yeah, the reason I ask is just because we have guys that we coach all the time who are always they're always hesitant to give those 3 months, right, or whatever the time frame is. They're always hesitant they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, that when they dedicate that time, they'll get the reward after, and that their friends will be there at the end. You know, they're always going to be time that you leave the gym and you can look at your phone and you can turn it back on, right? You're at a tournament all day Saturday. You've got all day Sunday before you even get to school. Like, just trying to balance out how they see that. I think, you know, your perspective is great, right? Just dive into it, commit.
Yeah,
100%.
and it's one of those things that it's hard for me to really explain it, but it just like never even occurred for me not to. Like, I was just like, this is wrestling season. This is what I do. And I had enough really close friends on the team that I didn't feel like socially isolated when I was hyper focused. Right. And, you know, you start to find more and more like social activities that are kind of wrestling centric. Like, oh yeah, this weekend I'm with my friends. We're going on a wrestling trip. And like, yeah, you're going to a wrestling tournament, but you got the good times, the van rides, the goofing around and whatever.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, it really does help when the core of your friends are, you know, in that same sport, like wrestling. Makes life a lot easier. It makes those sacrifices a lot less. So yeah, I definitely can relate to that and understand that. So in your senior year, you went to Wyoming Seminary, right?
Correct.
How was that? That's a very competitive, you know, wrestling program.
Yeah. So I'd say that the summer from my junior year to my senior year is when my wrestling career really took like a dramatic turn. I'd always done very well, like leading up to that summer, but I'd never necessarily had a breakthrough performance. I hadn't placed at Fargo. I hadn't won a national tournament. I went to that Field of Cadets tournament at Akron, Ohio, and it was my first time competing at the 220 weight class. And I got out there and I ripped through everybody. I won it in both styles. So I was feeling really hot coming off that. I ended up going and placing in both styles at Fargo that summer. And then I was going to Baku, Azerbaijan to compete in Cadet Worlds. I think I was like 10 days away from starting my senior year at Horizon High School in Arizona. I was starting to dive into the reading assignments that I'd neglected all summer. And then I got a Facebook message from Scott Green. Hey, we got a spot for you over at Wyoming Seminary. Do you want to come wrestle here? And it was the easiest, really hard decision I've ever made in my life, because I knew the second I got that message that I was going, but I was just crying, thinking about leaving all my friends and family. But I really knew it just wasn't an option for me to not go and not take that opportunity. Absolutely. I would not have had that much of a challenge competing in state my senior year in Arizona. Probably just, instead of having a year where I was just entirely solely focused on wrestling while I did at Wyoming Seminary, I really would have only had those 3 months, and I really only would have had like a handful of super challenging matches that year.
Mm-hmm. So we know that, you know, wrestling was kind of the number one sport from kind of a young age on. When was wrestling at a high college level, and when was, you know, competing on the world stage? When was that a goal for you? When was that something you focused on?
So I'd say I knew I wanted to compete at the college level the whole time. Like I'd say freshman and sophomore year, I was trying to talk to coaches. I was sending out letters of interest to coaches and stuff like that. But it was really that junior summer, having that breakout performance in Akron, placing at Fargo that year, that I was like, okay, I not only belong competing in college, I could do very well in college. I was having high level success with the international styles. So that really kind of catapulted me and adjusted my mindset. And then going on to Wyoming Seminary and having a good season there just really brought it that much into the forefront of my mind and my goals, and trying to restructure and reframe what I was capable of. And I always set goals for myself, and I always worked really hard towards them. But until I was starting to have bigger tastes of success, I couldn't necessarily keep raising the bar higher for myself. But as I did, like winning a state title my junior year, I was like, okay, now I need to place at a national tournament. And I placed at Fargo, and I was like, okay, I'm definitely wrestling in college now. I'm getting recruited. I have coaches who are interested in me. And it just kind of piled itself one on top of another, and my goals just kept going higher and higher.
Gotcha. So follow-up question to that. So when you had the goals and they started getting higher and higher, obviously the work you have to put in changes as well. The process you have to go through changes a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Was that something that you were able to, figure out for yourself, or was that like, the Wyoming Seminary coaches were helping you that? Where did you get that guidance on, like, how do I, I know what I want to do, but how do I do it?
I think that came all from coaching. If I didn't have like the level of coaching and direction I had, I really think I would have never had as good of a career as I did. Like, even from the first day I ever went to a wrestling practice, my first wrestling coach was a former Russian world and Olympic champ, Sergei Beloglazov. I'm 10. I got no clue what that even means, but he's showing high level technique. Going on at ASU, I'm getting coached by Melvin Douglas,
wow.
Another world champion, Olympic medalist, getting coached by Eric Larkin and Aaron Simpson, ASU wrestling legends. And then I get to high school, and I had two really great coaches who rode me and pushed me the entire time I was there, Ben Wick and Doug Thomas. And they just structured the workouts and challenged me enough throughout the entire process that I was able to keep meeting these smaller goals I set for myself. And then they were helping me realize that I could really push the bar even farther and set even higher goals. And then going to really, when I think about it and go like, how'd I get here? I'm really confident that I worked as hard as I could and I did everything right along the way, but I was just really so fortunate and privileged to have so many great like coaches and teammates who were able to just keep pushing me throughout like the entire journey. Cause you take good coaches who challenge you out of the situation. You take great training partners who challenge you out of the situation. It's really easy to stop getting better.
Absolutely.
Can you take us a little bit into the beginning of like your goal setting? Cause I feel like you were mentioning how the coach is challenging you, especially like let you hit like those little goals. And I some of the young guys, they have a tough time just differentiating those little goals that kind of stay fluid, right? They change maybe day to day at practice or week to week from their big goals, and they're not exactly sure how to pile them up and how to continually like change their little goals to lead up to the big goal. Can you take us to the beginning? Like, where do you start your process and figure that out, whether it be season goals or a week to week goal?
Yeah. So the way I kind of structure it and think about it is the first goal that I ever had in my head that I was like, I want to do this, was I wanted to win a junior high state championship in Arizona. That was the biggest tournament that I'd ever been to. I remember when I was in like 6th and 7th grade, I'd watch kids win state and be like, oh my God, wow. Like, that's incredible. He just did that. And that was my first taste of watching someone win what was like truly a championship in my mind. So that became the first goal I was obsessed about. And then once that was in the back of my mind, you start to break down like what you were talking about, the day-to-day goals. And it's how hard do I need to be able to work in practice? How automatic do my takedowns need to get? How good does my conditioning need to be? How smart does my weight cut need to be? And I think you can start to bog yourself down if you have too many like individual day goals. So my individual day goal every day was really simple. And it was like, no matter how I'm feeling, I'm going to go just till absolute exhaustion in practice. And crappy day, feeling a little sick, I got a lot of homework, I didn't get enough sleep, you're going and you're pushing through practice and making it through whatever adversity that day throws you. And then just stacking that up day over day, if you keep working through the hard situations in practice, you'll have the ability to push through in the back pocket when you get down to a tough match.
Yeah, you sound like you also, were very self-reflective after practice. Like, did I give everything today? Did I give everything I have? Did I leave it all on the mat today? And the other thing I'll just say, you mentioned all the great coaching, and it sounds like you had some phenomenal coaching, but you also were an active participant in that. Like, you just told us you were constantly thinking about what's the best way for me to cut weight? What's the smartest way for me to cut weight? What's the best workout for me? How can I put in the work? So the combination of having great coaching and being an active participant in that is probably part of what made you a champion. So that's a great lesson for the young kids who are listening to this to hear.
Yeah. And then don't get me wrong, I had plenty of bad days of practice, but they stuck with me. And you remember the butt whoopings you take a lot more than you remember a lot of the wins.
Yeah.
And it's when you have a really bad day of practice, or you sit there and go like, I felt terrible, or I was getting beat up by my partner, stuff like that, just not letting that dwell on you and just picking back up with better intensity and be like, how can I improve upon that bad day the next day?
Was your reaction to losses in competition similar to that, where you were able to kind of, reflect on it and then just shelve it and say, okay, I got to do this better next time, but not to carry it, not to let it linger that you lost something? How were you reacting when you lost a competitive match?
So my secret to competition is to have as much fun as possible. If I look at times when I've underperformed or not got it done, I think it's because I've been too tense or too uptight. So right after a match happens, I let myself have about 15 to 20 minutes to be pissed off and upset about it. I get some Gatorade and a granola bar, and then I just reset it.
That's awesome. And again, I love hearing that's not a chance. That didn't happen by chance. That happened by plan, right? You had a plan for that all the time, and that was your routine. And we, Coach Travis and I talk all the time to our kids about having a plan, having a routine that lets you becomes normal to you. And it sounds like that's exactly the same thing you were doing as well.
The tournaments where I was always like proudest of myself walking away to is when I would just take a really bad loss in the first or second round and then have to win like 6 or 7 matches in the wrestling backs and come back. Cause that just takes the most mental toughness and effort and just like heart. Cause it's so easy to just be like, all right, I lost to this guy. That sucked, and just throw it all away. But yeah, just 15, 20 minutes, get pissed off, get your jog, Gatorade, granola bar, calm down, just wipe the slate. And then once you're done with the tournament, like on the Sunday night or the Monday morning, reflecting and then starting to be like, okay, tactically, what went wrong? Was it my shape? Was it my strategy? Was it my game plan? What position could I work on to prevent that from happening in the future?
So you were saying how like your reset, you had 4 NCAA tournaments that, and I think you were one of four guys for Columbia to ever make 4 tournaments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or so. It's like 4 tournaments, being able to stay competitive in those tournaments. You took some losses each year. How do you prepare for like that big tournament like that? Like, right, staying focused. Everyone up there is like almost on your level. Everyone's a strong competitor, but you have a chance in every match, right? Everyone there has a chance in every match.
There's really nothing like the NCAA tournament. if you go back and look at those brackets from every year, the seeds never play out. That is anyone's tournament. It's who shows up and brings it to just an absolute another level there. And I never really accomplished what I was trying to accomplish when I went there. But I can just tell you the level of competition there is absolutely insane. It is anybody's tournament. And the preparation, I'd say that you try to treat it the same as every other tournament, but everyone kind of knows it isn't. There's a lot more emphasis placed on it. That's probably the largest crowd I've wrestled in front of in my life every single year. There's not a lot of wrestling tournaments that are selling out 18,000 seat arenas.
So tough question, but if you had to pick a reason that you didn't do as well as you wanted to at the NCAA tournament, do you have a thought why what it is? Is your conditioning? Is it just guys with better athletes? What do you think what do you think it is?
I mean, there's so many things that go into winning and losing any particular wrestling match. And if I think about it, I think it was some combination of nerves or maybe not like really believing I could get it done necessarily. But you get in there, you run into one guy, and a lot can happen in those 7 minutes there.
Yeah, because like you said, it is not like a regular tournament. I guess it's kind of like the Super Bowl, right? Everybody says, "Oh, it's another game. It's another game." It's not another game, and
yeah.
when you get there in that moment, you realize it's not another game. And so, I mean, it's an outstanding accomplishment to get there 4 times. It's phenomenal, and to win matches at that level is phenomenal. But you're also, speaking with you, you can see how, intellectual you are. And when I mean that, you're thinking about it. So I know you're someone who already thought like, well, why didn't I do as well? And you have some answers, which is pretty.
Well, I'm sick of hearing it's a great accomplishment that you made it 4 times. But the one other thing I will say is too, if it was freestyle, I think I would have gotten a lot more done.
Yeah.
I instantly become 30% better when it turns from folk style to freestyle.
Really?
Absolutely terrible on bottom. I've just been ridden out more times than a high-level NCAA wrestler should have been. Yeah. And if you can't get an escape at the NCAA tournament, a match that should be tied or should be anyone's match, all of a sudden you're losing, and it just puts you in a much more difficult situation to win. But I'm bad at getting off bottom. I don't score points on top in folk style. I get tons of takedowns. In freestyle, you don't have to get off bottom, and I got a wicked gut wrench too. So I'm 30% better the second the rules switch.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting.
You found great success at the strong success at all the world tournaments and the international tournaments. You went overseas. You placed highly in both Greco and freestyle. So clearly, you've made your point known on those 2 levels as far as the folk style.
I just feel so much more confident in freestyle of like my ability to build leads and hold leads and just put points on the board. And I think it's just like a way more fun style to wrestle too. Like every year when we'd get done with folk style, it'd be like, okay, a little bit of like sigh of relief, take a couple weeks off for the body. But then I was just so excited to get into freestyle. And I definitely would not still be competing in wrestling right now if it was still folk style. I train in the ASU room and I practice with those guys who are in college all the time. And it's written out there right in my contract, Garrett Ryan does not have to wrestle on bottom in folk style. Coach says we're doing parterre drills. I'm like, all right, but it's in my contract. I'm going to go over here, do some gut wrenches.
That's great.
And it's funny when you watch the NCAA tournament or when you compete in the NCAA tournament, wrestling gets so much narrower, right? I mean, there's so much. When we teach high school wrestling, we teach, I've been doing this for 20 years. I probably taught, 1,500 different variations of moves. When you get to the NCAA tournament, there's like 3 things you need to do, right? You need to take somebody down, and you need to escape, and you need to score or ride on top for a few minutes. So you had 2 of the 3 anyway. So
yeah,
that was cool. It's that 3rd one. It's interesting sport, and it's interesting that we don't in the United States focus that much on freestyle as we probably should if we want to be better internationally. But that's
so. this year, the tournament that we went to overseas was the Continental Cup in Dagestan, Russia. And as I'm sure you guys know, Dagestan is the heart of international wrestling success globally. It's a town of 3 million people, but I'd say they produce maybe 30 to 40% of the people competing at the world tournament on any given year. You look at the Olympics at 2016 at 86 kilograms, 3 of the 4 medalists were from Dagestan. One was representing Russia, one was representing Turkey. I think the third was Azerbaijan, but if you're not the number one guy there, you're going to defect to another country and represent them. And going out there and training and seeing just their youth. So every morning we would practice at 10 a.m. and their youth team would practice at 8 a.m. So we'd come in at the end of their ages like 8 to 12 practice, and you're looking around and you're like, these guys are practicing like a college team right now.
Yeah. Wow. So talking about still wrestling, and what are your goals? What are you doing in wrestling now? What are your goals for wrestling going forward?
So I am still training and competing out of ASU. I'm with the Sunkist Kids RTC now. So we practice alongside ASU's team, but when we compete, it's through a separate umbrella, the Sunkist Kids Club. My goal is to wrestle through 2024. Hopefully, they still have the Olympic trials in 2021, and I just want to do the best I possibly can.
That's
but
awesome.
if I make it to Tokyo, great. If I make it to wherever 2024 is, great. But it's about just the relentless pursuit of goals and participating and enjoying the sport that I just love so much.
We talk to our kids a lot about process over outcome, and it sounds like you're certainly a process guy. I always tell my kids, if you can fall in love with the process, the outcome will take care of itself. And you seem like a process guy. You just love the process, love getting in the gym, love putting in the work, love competing with your teammates. And then the outcome takes care of itself. And you can live with the outcome if you put in the work, right?
100%. Yeah. And only one person's going to get the outcome on any given year. There's only one guy at each weight class who's going to get to represent the country. And if it's me, great. But my goal is just to do everything in my power to put myself in the best position to succeed.
Yeah. So like we're talking about the way that you build your process. You've gone through, like we said, really high level coaching, really high level gyms that you've worked out in. You went from a very good young high school program and young high school club, and to Wyoming Seminary, one of the powerhouses, to an Ivy League Division I school. You've trained in Europe, you've wrestled in Europe, and how has each one of those gyms kind of changed you or changed your game, your focus, the way you focus? Like, what did you learn going gym to gym, kind of raising your game each time? Like, how did that develop your style, your process?
Well, I'd say starting out with like the little kids club at Sunkist, that's where I built like the baseline and the fundamentals of a lot of my technique. That's just kind of helped me be successful throughout. I didn't build any bad habits as a young wrestler, and I think that went like a long way for me, because there's some guys who pick up habits when they're in middle school or high school that they can never quite shed. I'd say in high school, that's when I started to learn to like be really tough, be really mean on the mat. I was always a competitor, but I kind of learned to kick it into a second gear in high school. Then SEM was the first time where I was just exposed to really high level competition on a frequent basis. We went to a tournament every weekend. We were traveling state by state. We did Ironman. We did Beast of the East. We did Pennsylvania Prep States, Prep Nationals. We did Doc Buchanan in California. And that really just kind of really got me more suited to what the college wrestling season would be like. In between my senior year at Wyoming Seminary and freshman year at Columbia, I lived at the Olympic Training Center for a year. And I was just training full time, doing 2-a-days, went to a couple college opens, went to a couple overseas tournament. But I was 18 then, getting to go to like the world team camps with all the senior level guys. And that year was really what made me go, yeah, even when I'm done wrestling in college, I think I want to keep going and competing at the senior level. And then college was probably the biggest challenge for me, learning to manage my academic life, my social life, my other hobbies, and then the most rigorous training I'd been exposed to at that point. Like coming into the adult world, the working world out of college, it's been much easier than being in college, because you would have lift at 6:30 a.m. You'd have 2 classes, you'd have practice, maybe you'd have a night class, and then you're doing homework till like 1 or 2 in the morning, and then you got to get up at 6:30 again. So the sleep deprivation's coming in. And then on the weekends too, you don't want to just be shut in resting the whole time. So yeah, college was just probably taught me the most real life skills from learning how to be a student athlete there.
So you mentioned,
And then,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah, no, you go ahead.
So you mentioned 2 things in there that I wanted to touch on. One, you mentioned kind of, wrestling at Columbia, all the schoolwork and all the things you had, social life. So I want to talk a little bit, ask you a question about time management and how you handle that. And the other thing is, you mentioned a hobby, which is a unique hobby. It seems more unique than it is, because you're a big man wrestler, to be involved in pottery. So I want you to talk about that and what you're doing with that now. But if you could talk to us about time management, and how did you manage all that? And how did you build that into your schedule every day? Were you able to be successful in all those areas and still get, maybe not the rest you need, but enough rest, to be successful?
If there's anything I should have done more in college, it was sleep. And ultimately sleep got sacrificed to be successful. I would say that the 2 biggest keys for time management are setting a schedule that you stick to every day. I had the hours of 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. were carved out for homework every night. And it was a rare treat if I didn't have any and I got to watch some Netflix or go to bed early. But that, and then don't let things build up. If you wait till the last minute and have to cram and do everything, it is much easier to just chip away and get a little bit of work done every day. Try to get assignments done as soon as possible. Teacher announces you got a paper in a discussion section for English class. Start looking through the book, start writing down points you want. Just anytime your brain is active and working and focused on a task, it is producing something that you can apply to accomplishing that. And if you just kind of waste that moment and come back to it, you're going to spend an extra 30 to 45 minutes trying to get worked back up and focused and locked in. So anytime my brain is like on a subject, I'm trying to find out how I can like use that to kind of complete my work on that subject.
Interesting.
Just
that's interesting.
Getting assignments done right as they come.
Yep. So take us into this, again, your hobby, the pottery world that you're in, and how you got involved in that, what your passion for that is. And I know that you have, Garrett Ryan Studios. I know you're kind of still involved in that. And is that a business for you, or tell us a little bit about that?
Long term, it will be a business, but for right now, no. But I started doing ceramics my junior year of high school. And I was good friends with the ceramics teacher. His name was Mr. Parton. And he actually used to come into the wrestling room. He had never wrestled before in his life, but he was a big, super physically fit guy, and he loved the UFC. So he just talked to other coaches. He's like, hey, yeah, I want to come in and wrestle. So I'm like 14 and 15 my freshman and sophomore year, just wrestling this fully grown, like super athletic man who has no clue what he's doing. And like I'm teaching him wrestling moves, and like we're just fighting, going at it. Then I ended up taking his class junior year. So we had already kind of built a friendship before then. And now this was his time to kind of show me what his passion was. And the first semester of ceramics, we mostly did like hand building, sculpting. And I was like, okay, I like this, but I wasn't that engaged. The second semester, we started doing pottery on the potter's wheel. And I was just instantly within like the first time I ever tried it, so absolutely consumed with like obsessive compulsive focus on it, just watching the wheel like spin and spin and spin and feeling the clay run through my fingers. It was it was love at first clay. I started skipping other classes to go to the ceramic studio to throw more pottery. I got the detention slips to prove it. I had mud on my pants every single day when I came home. And I just applied the same level of like focus and determination that I did to my wrestling into learning this new hobby. And then you were right. A lot of people do kind of laugh and go like, oh yeah, this big wrestler likes to make little porcelain cups. That's funny. But I think pottery is so similar to wrestling in so many ways. Wrestling's a one-on-one sport. You have to control your opponent, control his weight and his movements. And then everything about ceramics, specifically the pottery's wheel, is controlling this lump of clay that's violently being thrown outwards by centrifugal force. And you have to force it inwards and mold it. And everything is very precise. And if you lose focus for a single moment, your pot will collapse. And then there's just endless things you can do with glazing and carving, new designs and new shapes. So I got started my junior year at Horizon. My senior year at SEM, I wouldn't have gone to SEM if they didn't have a pottery studio. It was the first thing I asked Coach Green. I was like, do you have a pottery studio there? Okay, I'm there. Then found a studio in Colorado when I was at the OTC, did pottery at the Teachers College when I was at Columbia. So right now, since I've gotten back home, my pottery career has kind of been put on the back burner. I'm still training a ton. Then I'm working full-time as well. So that's probably going to be put off until I'm completely done wrestling. The way I figure it, I only really have 3 or 4 more years to compete at a high level in wrestling. I can do pottery until I'm 80, 90, 100.
Yeah.
So it's on the back burner for now, but I do miss it a lot. I got my pots all over my house. My mom just made the switch from teaching 4th grade to teaching elementary school art. So she has 2 potter's wheels and a kiln in her art room. I'm probably going to commandeer that once or twice, maybe do some guest lecturing. But ultimately, my hope is that once I'm a little less involved in wrestling, I'll have more time to commit to pottery. And then eventually I want to have a nice, clean website set up and then maybe come out with 2 or 3 batches of work per year for sale.
Well, I don't know what you sound more pumped about, wrestling or pottery, but you sound like you love both of them. And I have to tell you, as a parent, most parents, when the kids come home, you look for any signs of like maybe there's marijuana in their backpacks, or is there a vape pen or something like that. I'm sure your parents are looking for mud. That's different. And they're looking for signs of mud on your clothes, which is a different fact. But yeah, it sounds like you're doing awesome stuff. You really love it. And I saw some of your work on Instagram. It's really nice stuff you're doing, man. So that's really cool.
Thanks.
And
it's also gonna have a different outlet like that, and it's something that not a lot of people have. A lot of people doodle or they write poems. Like there's a lot of people who do that. There's not a lot of people who work on a potter's wheel. So it's another thing that you have that you're able to teach most people who don't know about, right? Not a lot of people know intricate, deep wrestling, right? Like everyone can wrestle for 2 seconds, but no one can wrestle for a long time, right? Everyone can just take some paint and throw it on a thing, but no one can sit there for a long time and work that potter's wheel. It's just more, praise to your focus, your attention, the way that you're able to really hone in and appreciate something. You can see by the way that you talk about it, how excited you are to be there, how focused you are on that thing. I mean, I didn't know if you were going to stop talking about it. I thought
your enthusiasm was great. And I love the analogy you made between wrestling and controlling that clay on the potter's wheel. That's something I would have never thought of, and it's very interesting how you make that analogy. That's really cool.
That's wrestling poetry right there.
Yeah, we have to put down the promo. So I have one more question. I mean, you were really really gave us some great answers. I have one more question, and and this is my silly question at the end of every whenever I have a wrestler on, especially. So wrestlers are known, man. Everybody carries backpacks. Every wrestler has a backpack that they don't let go, man. It's everywhere they go. Even if you're going to do cross match, you got a backpack on. So what's the most important thing that's in Garrett Ryan's backpack that he takes with him and he can't live without?
Probably water.
Probably water? Yeah.
I mean, I had one of those Camelbacks with the big water bladder in it that I would carry around all the time to stay hydrated. But
only
I'd say,
a heavyweight answers water
Yeah.
in their wrestling backpack.
oh yeah, I want to talk a little bit about negative stigma against heavyweights within the wrestling community too.
Go for it, man. Go for it.
I was a lightweight my whole life. I cut plenty of weight when I was a freshman, sophomore, junior in high school. My senior year, I had to like sweat a little the night before, but I wasn't like cutting weight. Man, once you become a heavyweight, people just hate you. You're in the back of the bus. Everyone's all pissed off, and you have a sandwich. And it's like, normally I'm funny. Guys like to joke around with me, but match day, I'm like, yeah, I'm just not going to talk to anyone.
Well, I will tell you this. They hate you less if you're a successful heavyweight than if you're not.
True.
When you're not successful, when you're sitting around, you're eating a burger while they're starving, they really hate you.
I just tell them, hey, man, if you don't want to cut weight, get up to heavyweight. It's not as easy as you think. You couldn't carry around this big bag of bones.
Well, you definitely carried it around well. We love having you on this podcast because I think you brought something that I don't think anybody else on our show has brought so far, and that's like just another level of enthusiasm and love for the sport and a love for your pottery, and that must transfer into everything you do. So I'm sure whatever relationships you're going to have, whatever you decide to do, whether it's pottery or other things, it's going to carry through with that as well. And you're not only going to be successful as you've been, but you seem like you enjoy life, and that's half the battle, man. So Trav, you any more questions?
No. I was thinking all the things you were just saying. I'm just hyped to watch. I mean, I'm hoping that you're going to have enough more attempts to continue your wrestling career. With everything going on, who knows what they're going to let us compete with.
Yeah.
So we're excited to watch you.
There's talk right now about us starting to get on the mat in the next month or so, but we're going to have to go through a process where everyone gets tested for COVID. If anyone tests positive, they're going to have to isolate. There's going to be ongoing testing. And the real crazy thing is going to be is if someone in the room tests positive, you're going to get the whole room shut down for 14 days. So it's going to be a difficult training obstacle for a lot of people everywhere, I imagine, going forward.
Yeah, you guys gotta just get a house, and whoever trains in that gym lives in the house, and whoever you go from the house to the gym to the house.
Yeah.
Keep it as tight knit as possible is really the only.
Anybody who's never been involved in wrestling.
We're excited to hopefully get those opportunities. Oh, I was just saying. I'm pumped to like you said, you might end up being that guy representing the country, and we'd love to be able to say that we talked to you before you did it. So.
Yeah, I hope so too.
All of a sudden, no one outside of wrestling will understand this, but all of a sudden, ringworm doesn't seem so bad compared to COVID.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm just saying, I feel like wrestlers are especially equipped to handle viral infections based on the MRSA, herpes gladiatorium, impetigo, ringworm.
Yeah, we've seen it all, man. We've seen it all. So
Exactly.
Hey, look, we had Richard Perry on one of our first podcasts, and he had that terrible accident, but he's back training and hoping to make it to the 2020 trials like you. And we told him, man, you make that team. Hopefully you can jump back on here with us and tell us about that experience. And same thing with you, man. We'd love to have you back on, as you hit your next plateau. And if you can do that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'd be happy to come on anytime, guys. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we appreciate you. It was a lot of fun. And best of luck, and we'll stay in touch.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Okay, pal, you too.
Have a good day.
All right, bye.